This is gonna be very, very interesting.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, extreme sports games were all the rage. We had games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and 1080 Snowboarding really making their marks in the scene. However, the studio over at EA Canada were looking to really make something truly special in the snowboarding scene. SSX Tricky is the follow-up to 2000's PS2 launch title, SSX, which took the snowboarding genre and made it far more extreme than the sport has ever been. SSX Tricky takes the original arcade-style gameplay and makes the tracks more extreme and adds in the over-the-top Uber tricks. Additionally, this sequel was made multi-platform since the GameCube and Xbox were now out to join in on the 6th generation of gaming. So, is this one uber fun time, or is this a tricky mess? Let's find out.
Welcome to SSX Tricky. I hope you brought warm clothes.
SSX Tricky is an arcade-style snowboarding game that blends racing and show-off events. Many claim this to be more of a semi-sequel, as it builds upon the same tracks of the first game but alters them heavily, while also adding 2 new levels, Garibaldi and Alaska. Tackling the World Circuit mode, you will choose from a vast cast of characters, some returning from the original, like Elise, Mac, Moby, Kaori, JP, and Zoe, and some new ones like Eddie, Simon, Sia, Brody, Marisol, and Luther. Each character has their own unique personality and stats. Some even rely on certain board types, whether it be Alpine boards which focus on speed, and BX and freestyle boards that focus more on tricks. World Circuit has you choose if you want to take on race events or show-off events. Race events have you going through 3 heats of each level, essentially a qualifying heat, semifinal, and final round. You need to place in the top 3 for each heat to advance, while getting in the top 3 in the final round will earn you a medal to advance to the next level. In races, it'll be you against 5 other opponents. To make things more interesting, there is a friend or foe system in place here. Depending on who you play as, certain characters may be friendly with you, while others will actively go after you and try to always knock you down. There will be banter amongst the characters during races, and again, depending on their relationships, they will be unique. If you want to make enemies, just go ahead and knock down anyone in your path. If you want to keep things as is or make them less heated, avoid knocking people down or colliding with others on the track. It's a very interesting setup that has never really been seen in a game like this before.
Hey, see ya! I wish I could take you with me, but I can see the Earth rotating.
When you're not racing in the World Circuit, you'll be doing show-off events. These are all about pulling off the most tricks and getting the highest point score possible in each level, while trying to nab a medal based on the score requirements. Levels are the same as before, except that they've been fitted with far more rails to add into the mix so that you can mix grinds with your aerial tricks. Additionally, there are different colored massive-sized snowflakes that are actually point multipliers. Yellow are worth twice as much, orange are 3 times the amount, and red are worth 5 times the amount of the point value. When collecting this, it will only count for the current trick combo you're pulling off. Unlike race events, show-off is actually only 1 run to get the medal, taking significantly less time to complete these events. Additionally, there are 2 power-ups you can collect in the middle of events. There's a speed boost and a trick boost. Speed boost maxes out your speed even without boost, and trick boost lets you do spins and flips at a much faster rate than normal, even with the pre-winding. So, all this sounds great, but how does SSX Tricky play? Well, 20 years later, and SSX Tricky still has the same addictive gameplay after all these years. Characters all handle responsively, while carving turns feels great. You can push up on the analog stick to lean and get more speed, as well as hold down the A button to prep for a jump, which also garners more speed. When holding A, you can use the D-pad to pre-wind your spin and flip movement in the air. Pre-winding is an essential if you want to spin and flip in the air as fast as possible. You can even tweak your landing using the analog stick after doing aerial movement. In terms of tricks, you can use the L, R, and Z buttons to initiate grabs, while holding down the B button will tweak those grabs. Pulling off tricks without bailing will build up your tricky meter, which lets you boost. There are 3 tiers of boost gauge, and the higher the boost, the more effective it is. However, filling up the tricky meter entirely will let you use uber tricks. These insane, over-the-top tricks will require some serious airtime if you're going to pull them off, but doing so is such a spectacle. Pulling off 6 in succession within the event will let you unlock unlimited boost for the remainder of that event. Earlier, I also mentioned about knockdowns. When you're dire for boost, the risk and reward system of shoving opponents down to eat snow will automatically fill up your tricky meter. The C-stick lets you shove opponents either in front of you, behind you, and to the sides of you. But remember, doing this will come at the expense of becoming a target on the slopes. When earning medals, you will earn stat points to increase in areas like edging, stability, speed, and tricks. Edging will improve your turning and carving, stability improves your rail balance, speed increases your top speed, and tricks let you pull off grabs, spins, and flips much quicker. Earning a gold medal in an event will net you 6 stat points to allocate to your liking, while silver will net you 4, bronze will net you 2. As you get medals, your characters will go up in rank as well, unlocking new boards for your riders with increased stats as well. Additionally, the game does have a trick book. Completing each chapter in the trick book for the character you're playing as will unlock a new outfit for them to wear. However, completing the entire trick book will unlock the best board for that character, the Uber board. Doing so will test your trick skills for sure, but it's definitely a good incentive to try to complete this so you can get that Uber board. In terms of the game's tracks, holy crap are these levels beautifully designed. If you came from the original SSX on PlayStation 2, all the tracks from that game return, but have been drastically changed up. The 2 new tracks for this installment, Garibaldi and Alaska, are also excellent additions. Now, I want to mention a few of these tracks and their uniqueness. Garibaldi is the game's first track and serves as a great beginner course, giving you an idea of the game's scope in its track designs. Mercury City Meltdown is a trek through a city completely buried in snow as you board off of skyscrapers and go through urban terrain. Tokyo Megaplex is a massive pinball machine where you can either hit switches on the ground to open up numerous paths, or if you're skilled enough, you can even grind the rails that are high above the track that go from start to finish, which is super rewarding to pull off. Aloha Ice Jam is another example of verticality, in which you're boarding off of a melting snow mountain in Hawaii. Alaska, one of the other new tracks, is easily the fiercest track to board down, filled with sharp turns and ice at every corner, and serves as a proper final track in the world circuit. There are a few other tracks I didn't mention here, but this is to give you an idea of the variety and creativeness in the game's track design. Additionally, you can unlock 2 more tracks. Untracked, which is unlocked after getting the gold medal in all the race events, and Pipe Dream, which is unlocked by getting all the gold medals in Show Off. What still astonishes me with the track design in this game today is how open every course is. Sure, there is a set path to take, but there are so many hidden paths to find that are usually indicated by colored glass with the game's logo, and some that might not even be shown that way. Finding and reaching some of these points can be challenging, but it will also ensure staying ahead of the pack in races. If the game's tracks didn't have enough character to them itself, the game's cast of characters further add to this. Every character has so much personality and charm to them.
I'll take them high, you take them low, got it?
You got it.
I was always a fan of Eddie in this game, and Mac was my second favorite, whom then became my favorite in SSX 3. Every character has their own unique uber tricks to pull off as well that truly nail the character that they are. For example, Eddie is this party type of guy who likes to do the worm on his board, while Mac uses the board like a DJ turntable in one of his uber tricks since he's actually a DJ. And then you have the insane Simon, who throws the board around his neck showing how nuts he is. It's been exceedingly rare for games nowadays to actually have a cast of characters like this, and replaying SSX Tricky has really brought me back to a time where developers truly got creative, but also infused fun into their characters. Visually, SSX Tricky is a very nice looking game, with its beautifully designed tracks, great character design, and some truly top-notch animation work. Seriously, seeing how fluid all the riders animate when pulling off tricks and carving down the tracks is awesome. However, there is one aspect on this GameCube port that definitely hurts the experience quite a bit: the frame rate. See, I played this on the PS2 20 years ago, and my brother and I played this game for about 6 months straight. No joke, it was literally the only game we kept in his PlayStation 2 for that long to do 100% of everything with every character. In that time, I've memorized the way the game is, and when playing it on the GameCube, it was very disheartening to see the frame rate drop as often as it did. On the PlayStation 2, the game runs mostly at 60 frames per second with a few drops here and there to maybe 30. On the GameCube, it tries to hold 60 frames per second, but the majority of the time it stays within the 30 frames per second mark, with some dips well under that at times. This took some serious adjustment for me. It's still perfectly playable, and more importantly, has zero impact on the control response. But the inconsistent frame rate did pull me away from the immersion. In several ways, the GameCube is actually more powerful than the PlayStation 2, but EA Canada may have been on a time pressure to get this version out on the GameCube before holidays and weren't fully familiar with the console's architecture. Additionally, another difference between the PlayStation 2 and GameCube version, the PS2 version has DVD content so you can watch far more behind the scenes footage of the game, whereas the GameCube strictly has a making of video, which is much shorter than all the content you can watch in its other versions. SSX Tricky's audio is really impressive stuff. From the game's infamous It's Tricky intro to the game's menu track that changes dynamically as you go through the menus, you know this is a game that has a strong emphasis on audio.
A's. Eddie.
Alright, let's keep it real.
Set up character. Select event. Select venue. Snow. Elite. Mesa. Mercury City Meltdown. Ignore all speed limits within city limits.
The sound effects of the board hitting the snow from jumps, to grabbing the board, to the great voiceover banter amongst the characters, it's all very immersive audio. Add in a bumpin' soundtrack that has some killer songs, and this is a game you just crank up your audio system for. The music dynamically changes throughout the tracks as well to further add to the immersion. The game also has several actors and actresses playing the characters in this game. To name a few, you have Lucy Liu, who plays Elise, Billy Zane, who plays Brody, David Arquette, who plays Eddie, and Oliver Platt, who plays Luther.
Need protection, you namby-pamby, scissor freak, jumping boots, wimp.
Like I said, crank up the audio, because this is one audio experience your ears will thank you for.
This one's gonna be a face full of...
Up there like
Front side 360 with a head in there.
20 years later, an SSX Tricky is still a fantastic snowboarding game that stood the test of time. It oozes charm and screams early 2000s in the best way possible. While the GameCube version's very inconsistent frame rate does detract from the experience quite a bit, the game itself is so well crafted, it's a must-play regardless. This level of creativity is sorely lacking nowadays, and it's so refreshing to return to this after 2 decades. SSX Tricky on the GameCube may not be as slickly polished as the PS2 version, but it's still an uber time.